Happy Wednesday, everybody. Hope you're having a good day so far, and hope you're having a good week. Um, so it is 11 p.m. right now as I'm recording this, because I have to work tomorrow. Um, I was asked to work while someone goes to the doctor, and I originally said no, but then I was like, no, let me go in, get a few extra hours. Um, anytime I can get a few extra hours is nice. As much as I didn't want to do it. But I was like, man, I got to get home and find a time to record. And this was the only time I could record. And it was a pretty okay today, but um, my episode yesterday was doing pretty good. And I know it was for the fact that I could go back on Facebook finally and, share it and promote it again. But then this morning, I get an email from YouTube that they took down my video. This is now the second video that they have taken down. I did appeal the decision, but I haven't heard back from them. Um, like last time it happened, they got back to me quite quickly and, reversed their original decision. Um, but I couldn't put the original back up to keep my views. So this is going to affect that again. And I know the views that I get, it doesn't sound like a lot, but for someone who's only been doing this for a couple months, every single view and all of your watch time absolutely counts to build your channel so you can eventually move towards monetizing it or being big enough and having enough exposure that you can at least get sponsors. And I can't do that if YouTube keeps taking down my videos and then reversing those decisions and forcing me to have to re-upload it and start the views, the view count back over. It's pretty vague, misinformation, apparently. To the best of my knowledge, everything that I said, if it wasn't an opinion or if it was speculation, that was said. And I'm not really sure what was misinformation. And what irritates me the most is that YouTube doesn't give you the option or even the chance to correct anything that might be wrong and keep the video up, maybe just private the video long enough for you to go in and correct it and then make it go public again to where you don't lose the views. But it is what it is. So I have a pretty good idea that I think I know what is causing them to have taken it down. I'm going to go in and cut that out and then re-upload it so other people can watch it. But anyway, I don't have a lot of time tonight because I do actually have to go to bed. Um, I'm already quite tired. Anyway, so our daily promise today, who gave himself for us that he might redeem us from all iniquity and purify unto himself a peculiar people zealous of good works. Titus 2:14. Our redemption and future life is assured, for Jesus Christ the Lamb was stricken down for our sakes, and so every spiritual blessing is even now granted us. Christ demanded himself a people, and so he duly paid for one. We are his people, we are his sheep, we are his workmanship. We who believe are assured our salvation, for the winning of it lay in the hand of he who has already won it. Okay, a lot of stuff to get to. The first thing that I want to go over is I want to go over some of the things that were said and done after our 13 service members were lost in Afghanistan. And first, I want to just send out my condolences to those family members of the lost. It's, I couldn't imagine. I mean, the only people I've lost close to me would be my papa and my grandma, and they lived a relatively long and good life, and I couldn't imagine losing someone, especially in such an unnecessary and needless way like that, because it wasn't necessary. And Biden is getting a lot of flack for him being. I don't blame Biden for everything in Afghanistan. Obviously, you can't. This started back in 2001. mission changed several times under Bush's administration, but you can absolutely blame him for the withdrawal and everything that has happened subsequent to the withdrawal. And not only have we lost probably countless American civilians over there that we don't even know about yet, but we lose these 13 service members, and then we find out, and the story is still being looked into, so I don't really know exactly what happened. But after the drone strike that they said killed the planner, and then they came back and said, well, it killed two ISIS K members, there was another drone strike, and apparently it was on a car that there were ISIS K members in this vehicle. But the story is developing, and we now find out that it was a family um, of 10 people, or there were 10 people there. I don't know if all 10 were family. Um, 6 or 7 kids were killed, and 2 adults. And I'm trying to remember if that's exactly what I heard on Ben Shapiro's podcast today. But I'm pretty sure he said 6 or 7 kids, 2 adults were killed in this drone strike. And I don't know what happened. So I'm waiting for that story to develop. But um, let's take a look. This story that, well, let's not start there. Let's start with the first thing. If you watch the dignified transfer of these service members being brought back home, um, Joe Biden is standing there with his hand over his heart, and he checks his watch, which, I mean, could you imagine if Trump had done that? Like, it would be all over the media forever, and they'd never let it go and never let him live it down. However, Trump wouldn't have done that, but he checks his watch, and now he has um, Gold Star fathers that are blasting him because of him doing that, because it is very disrespectful. And I mean, I don't care how long it's taking. I don't care if you have somewhere to be. When you are doing something like this as the president, and the people that are being brought back home to be buried are dead because of you, probably shouldn't be checking your watch. So, Gold Star fathers Mark Schmitz and Darren Hoover slammed Biden during a Fox News interview on Monday night for appearing to repeatedly look at his watch while participating in the dignified transfer of the 13 U.S. service members who died in a terrorist attack last week in Kabul. In reference to the checking of his watch, that didn't happen just once, said Hoover, who lost his son, Marine Staff Sergeant Taylor Hoover, in the attack. That happened on every single one that came out of that airplane. It happened on every single one of them. They would release the salute, and he would look down at his watch on every last one. All 13, he looked down at his watch. As a father, seeing that and the disrespect and hearing from his former leaders, one of his master sergeants said exactly what you just said, that that this was avoidable, that they left him over there. He continued, they let them down. We can't have that. It can't happen ever again. So Fox News host John Hannity asked Schmitz, who lost his son, Marine Lance Corporal Jared Schmitz, what he thought about the watch incident. Quote, I actually leaned into my son's mother's ear and I said, I swear to God, if he checks his watch one more time, and was probably on only 4 times in, I couldn't look at him anymore after that. Considering especially the time and why we were there, I found it to be the most disrespectful thing I'd ever seen. So Jason Rants on KTTH radio tweeted out about this and what they had to say. Now, I'm not going to be playing any more video clips because every time I do, I am copyright claimed. I was copyright claimed for yesterday's video because I was uploading a small clip from a UFC fight. I've had Fox News claim me. I've had the International Olympic Committee claim me. So until I can figure out why I keep getting claimed when I'm clearly using something under the Fair Use Act, I'm just not going to do it because it's a hassle to go in and trim that out, and I'm just not. I'm done. Okay. So the Washington Post reported that a similar incident allegedly happened when Biden met with a family member from a different family that lost a loved one. So some of the grieving relatives felt the need to interact directly with the president after losing their loved one, including, uh, I'm not sure how you say this, Gina McCollum. I'm not sure if that's how you say it, who married Marine Corps Lance Corporal Riley McCollum just 6 months ago and is due to give birth to the couple's child next month. This is the one who's about to be a first time father. Gigi wanted to look him in the eye and hear him, McCollum's sister Royce said in a text message to the Washington Post. Royce recounted that Jenna left disappointed. The president, she said, kept checking his watch and bringing up Beau. He cannot possibly understand, Royce told the Washington Post. My dad and I did not want to speak to him. You cannot kneel on our flag and pretend you care about our troops. You can't F up as bad as he did and say you're sorry. This did not need to happen, and every life is on his hands. The thousands of Afghans who will suffer and be tortured is a direct result of his incompetence. So, this is just three of the families that are calling him out. Then you have a Gold Star father on meeting Biden, and he said, absolutely not, didn't want him anywhere near us. And you got to think, usually meeting the president is a very exciting and an honorable moment. Um, like, it does depend on who you're meeting, but that is how it should be looked at. It's exciting and it's an honor to meet the president. But nobody wants to meet Biden unless you're one of his little sheeple. So this is the same father of Gold Star father Darren Hoover of Taylor Hoover, staff sergeant. So he spoke with Sean Hannity on Fox and he said, we didn't want to deal with him. We didn't want him anywhere near us. We as a family decided that that was the way it was going to be. It's the absolute worst feeling in the world, Hoover said about losing his son. Having them be away for so long and doing the job that they all love, there's no doubt about it. Being a Marine to these guys is everything. And having this happen to these heroes, every one of them is a hero. There is no doubt. Every last one of them. They died with their brothers and their sisters right next to them, doing exactly what they wanted to do, and that is defending this country. Hannity had another Gold Star father on his show, Mark Schmitz, Marine Lance Corporal Jared Schmitz's dad, and Schmidt said that he had originally planned on not meeting with Biden, but he changed his mind. However, after meeting Biden, he said that it did not go well. Quote, well, initially I wasn't going to meet with him, but then I felt I owed it to my son to at least have some words with him about how I felt, and it didn't go well. He talked a bit more about his son, his own son, than he did my son, and that didn't sit well with me. So this is from the Washington Post. But by his own account, Schmitz glared hard at the president, so Biden spent more time looking at his ex wife, repeatedly invoking his own son, Beau, who died 6 years ago. Schmitz did not want to hear about Beau. He wanted to talk about Jared. Eventually, the parents took out a photo to show to Biden. I said, don't you ever forget that name. Don't you ever forget that face. Don't you ever forget the names of the other 12 and take some time to learn their stories. Schmidt said that Biden did not like that and claimed that he knew their stories. The U.S. soldiers that were killed during the terror attack on the Kabul airport are Marine Corps Staff Sergeant Darren T. Hoover, 31, of Salt Lake City, Utah, Marine Corps Sergeant Johnny Rosario Pichardo, 25, of Lawrence, Massachusetts, Marine Corps Sergeant Nicole L.G., 23, of Sacramento, California, Marine Corps Corporal Hunter Lopez, 22, of Indio, California, Marine Corps Corporal Dagan W. Page, 23, of Omaha, Nebraska, Marine Corps Corporal Humberto A. Sanchez, 22, of Logansport, Indiana, Marine Corps Lance Corporal David L. Espinoza, 20, of Rio Bravo, Texas, Marine Corps Lance Corporal Jared M. Schmitz, 20, of St. Charles, Missouri, Marine Corps Lance Corporal Riley J. McCollum, 20, of Jackson, Wyoming, Marine Corps Lance Corporal Dylan R. Marola, 20, of Rancho Cucamonga, California, Marine Corps Lance Corporal Kareem N. Noki, 20, of Norco, California, Navy Hospitalman Maxton W. Sobiak, 22, of Berlin Heights, Ohio, and Army Staff Sergeant Ryan C. Is it Noss? I'm probably butchering that. 23 of Corryton, Tennessee. And I think it's very important that everybody remember these names and honor these service members because they died doing their job, but they died needlessly. And it was not necessary for this to happen. But that's not all. There's a Gold Star mom blast Biden for rolling his eyes like he was annoyed with this mother. So, Shayna Chappelle, the mother of Marine Corps Lance Corporal Kareem N. Noki, slammed Biden in a post on social media for the way that he acted when the two met and for how he acted during the dignified transfer of 13 slain U.S. service members. Chappelle wrote on Facebook that she was able to get 5 inches from Biden's face and look him straight in the eyes and have words with him. Chappelle expressed the pain she was experiencing of never again being able to enjoy her son when Biden tried to interrupt me with his own sob story, and she had to tell him, "This isn't about you, so don't make it about you." Writing to Biden in the post, Chappelle continued, and this is edited for clarity. This is from her. "You then said you just wanted me to know that you know how I feel, and I let you know that you don't know how I feel, and you do not have the right to tell me you know how I feel. You then rolled your effing eyes in your head like you were annoyed with me, and I let you know that the only reason I was talking to you was out of respect for my son. You turned to walk away, and I let you know my son's blood was on your hands, and you threw your hand up behind you as you walked away from me like you were saying, 'Okay, whatever.'" I can totally see Biden doing this too, because I've seen his aggravation and frustration with people asking him questions that he doesn't like, interactions with people that he's uncomfortable with. That's exactly the kind of stuff he does. Chappelle said that if former President Donald Trump was still in office, that her son and the other 12 service members would all still be alive. Chappelle also took issues with Biden repeatedly looking down at his watch during the dignified transfer of the 13 service members' bodies. "By the way, as my son and the rest of our fallen heroes were being taken off the plane yesterday, I watched you disrespect us all 5 different times by checking your watch," she wrote. "What the F was so important that you had to keep looking at your watch? You are nobody special, Biden. America hates you. Don't forget, you guys, this is America's most popular president ever. Remember that." Gold Star fathers Mark Schmitz, Darren Hoover also slammed Biden. And I'm not going to reread what they said because um, we already read that. But this is the cavalier attitude that he has towards loss of life over something that he caused, and it's very disgusting to see. And uh, if I didn't like him, if I couldn't, how are you supposed to word that? If I didn't like him, then I sure as heck don't like him now. Is that how you would say that? I'm not sure. I'm tired. I really, I cannot stand this man. I don't like to look at him. He disgusts me. His face disgusts me. I don't like to hear him talk. It's like nails down a chalkboard to listen to this man ramble on, incoherently for whatever he tries to say. He's not actually saying. He's an idiot. He is, he is a, as Ben would call him, he is a buffoon and he needs to go. They all need to go. Millie and Austin, they need to resign. It's ridiculous. Um, the last one that pertains to all of this that, has been pointed and directed towards Biden and his callousness towards the situation. Um, George W. Bush's chief speechwriter pointed out that Biden is not a Gold Star father and he needs to stop playing one on TV. And I thought this was interesting because with parents of the fallen saying something, obviously everything that they're saying is correct, but people that are in a high emotional situation will say certain things. But if you have people that are outside of that situation saying the same kind of stuff, then you have to admit that it's not just because these people are emotional, that there is something to what they're saying and expressing what they're seeing. So on Monday, in a scathing opinion piece for the Wall Street Journal, William McGurn, the chief speechwriter for former President George W. Bush, eviscerated Biden for incessantly bringing up his late son Beau after American servicemen and women were murdered by terrorists in Afghanistan. McGurn snapped, "Mr. Biden is not a Gold Star father and should stop playing one on TV." McGurn began his essay by noting that some people hoped Biden might reconsider letting the Taliban dictate the terms of our exit. He added, "These people profoundly misunderstand the president and the political equations driving his decisions." For Mr. Biden, the top priority was to use the 20th anniversary of 9/11 to take a victory lap as the president who ended America's longest war. Yep, I see that one. That's not one that I would have thought was happening. That's not any of my predictions of why he did it, but I could see that being a reason as well. So, when Kabul fell, it added a new imperative: avoid any U.S. combat casualties that would mar the moment, even at the cost of leaving Americans behind enemy lines and abandoning our Afghan partners. Critics who accuse the president of having no strategy miss the point. What we are seeing is the strategy, McGurn posted. It is based on Mr. Biden's confidence that no one will hold the disastrous consequences of his decisions about Afghanistan against him so long as our troops are gone. Except this, and Afghanistan falls neatly into place. McGurn recalled Biden stating in July, "There's going to be no circumstance where you see people being lifted off the roof of an embassy," McGurn commented. "Turned out plenty of folks were evacuated from our embassy in Kabul, but no helicopter dared land on the rooftop lest a photographer end up with an image too close to Saigon 75 for the political comfort of the commander-in-chief. Ditto for rescuing Americans in and around the city. Too great a risk of a replay of Mogadishu, is that how you say that? Mogadishu, and another Black Hawk Down. So instead of sending highly trained soldiers and Marines outside the airport to do it their way and on their terms, they were largely confined to the airport while Central Intelligence Agency teams and volunteer groups brought people out." And I'm going to get to some of these groups who were escorting Americans to the airport and the planes. Um, I thought that I would be shocked to hear who was doing it, but I don't think anything could shock me anymore. But also thinking about it, I'm curious, was Biden over foreign policy during the what was that, 1993? Um Mogadishu, was that in 93? I think it was. I'm curious if he was over foreign policy when that kind of stuff took place. I'm going to look into that. So McGurn wrote bluntly, "George W. Bush surged troops to fight in Iraq. Barack Obama surged troops to fight in Afghanistan. Mr. Biden surged them to pack up and go home." McGurn then turned to Biden's avoidance of any sort of mea culpa. Meantime, the president refuses. That's mea culpa, by the way. Meantime, the president refuses to acknowledge any hint of failure, much less his own culpability. He has variously denied making any mistakes, claimed he anticipated the entire mess, and wherever possible, blamed Donald Trump. He also dodges the hard question by constantly insisting the issue in contention is his decision to leave rather than the deadly hash he's made of it. And he bizarrely keeps invoking his son, the late Major Beau Biden, a Delaware Army National Guard lawyer who served honorably in Baghdad and whose early death from brain cancer was tragic, but has nothing to do with Afghanistan, much less the 11 Marines, Navy corpsmen, and Army soldier killed in Thursday's suicide bombing. Mr. Biden is not a Gold Star father and should stop playing one on TV. McGurn concluded, "In demanding moments, great presidents appeal to the better angels of our nature. But Mr. Biden's presidency now rests on a cynical bet that by the time September 11 rolls around, a war-weary American people will share the president's indifference to what he has now wrought in Afghanistan. We can already imagine his response to any newsman who dares bring it up. Come on, man. That was 2 weeks ago." Yeah, I guarantee you those are going to be his exact words too, if anybody does. It's just it's just complete chaos and it's such a mess. And when you hear what they were doing, who they were having escort Americans, escort the American civilians to get to the airport. And you got to wonder, what are they being given to do so? So I'll touch on that when we come back. Let's talk about who was escorting Americans to the Kabul airport. The U.S. apparently negotiated a secret arrangement with the Taliban to do this job. So, this article says that the Biden administration reportedly worked out a previously undisclosed arrangement with Taliban extremists to help bring U.S. citizens to the airport in Kabul. The U.S. military negotiated a secret arrangement with the Taliban that resulted in Taliban members escorting groups of Americans to the gates of Kabul airport as they sought to escape Afghanistan. And this is from CNN. The official spoke on the condition of anonymity due to the sensitivity of the arrangements, which have not been disclosed until now because the U.S. was concerned about Taliban reaction to any publicity, as well as the threat of attacks from ISIS-K if its operatives had realized Americans were being escorted in groups. The Taliban allegedly escorted some Americans a few times a day from a staging area near the airport to a gate that was manned by U.S. forces. U.S. forces were able to watch some of the escorts take place. CNN's report did not mention what, if anything, the Taliban received in exchange for their cooperation in the secret arrangement that was negotiated with the U.S. But, I mean, come on. Were they really doing this out of the kindness of their hearts? No. They were given probably a significant amount of whatever it was they wanted, money most likely, to do this. In another separate secret arrangement not disclosed until the operation was over, troops from the elite Joint Special Operations Command and other special operations units were also on the ground helping Americans escape by contacting them through call centers, CNN added. Special Operations Forces set up their own secret gate at the airport and was at times in direct communication with Americans, telling them exactly where to walk to find the gate and be able to get inside the airport. The report acknowledged that there had been numerous reports that the Taliban turned away Americans with passports from the airport. The Biden administration has faced weeks of intense backlash over its disastrous handling of the situation in Afghanistan. Hundreds of Americans remain trapped inside Afghanistan, despite Biden telling ABC News that he would leave U.S. troops on the ground until all Americans who wanted to leave were evacuated. More disastrous, and ISIS terrorists detonated a 25-pound suicide vest last week at the Abbey Gate, killing roughly 200 Afghans and 13 U.S. service members. A report leaked by the U.S. to Politico pinned blame for the Abbey Gate remaining open on the British, claiming that the U.S. had to leave it open because the British were in the process of evacuating some of their people. You notice how all the blame shifts everywhere but on the Biden admin? Dominic Raab, Britain's Foreign Secretary and First Secretary of State, forcibly pushed back on the claim, saying, "It's just not true to suggest that other than securing our civilian staff inside the airport that we were pushing to leave the gate open. In fact, and let me just be clear about this, we were issuing changes of travel advice before the bomb attack took place and saying to people in the crowd, which is what I was particularly concerned that certainly UK nationals and anyone else should leave because of the risk," Rob added. Now, so you have Taliban people um, bringing Americans to the gate to leave. We don't know what they were given in exchange for doing this, but we do know that the Biden admin did consider giving Taliban direct aid, um, despite sanctions and terror ties. So this is definitely ridiculous. Um, Now I know this says they considered it. I guaranteed they gave it, but that's just speculation on my part. The U.S. is now reportedly considering giving direct financial aid and economic assistance to the Taliban, despite international sanctions placed on the group over its material support for radical Islamic terrorism, and despite nearly 2 decades of considering the Taliban a sworn enemy. Biden National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan told ABC News' George Stephanopoulos that the U.S. is considering aid. So we're considering giving aid to the terrorist group who harbored Al Qaeda, the terrorist group who attacked us in our homeland, and we're going to give these people aid that hate America and are killing anyone who helped uh, any of our American allies over there, our Afghan allies rather, and Americans that are left behind could possibly be getting killed by them, tortured by them, whatever it is that exactly they do. Apparently now they've been able to figure out how to fly our helicopters around, and they're flying around with people hanging from the bottom of the helicopters. So that's the kind of stuff you can expect from the Taliban going forward. However, if we're going to give them money that they're going to turn around and use in order to attack us. I mean, if that is not where you see this direction going, then you are blind. But we've been, you know, indirectly and directly financing terrorist groups all over for decades upon decades. So what's it matter? This is how stupid we are that we aid these types of people. Says there is an important dimension of humanitarian assistance that should go directly to the people of Afghanistan. They need help with respect to health and food aid and other forms of subsistence, and we do intend to continue that. But how are you going to get it to the Afghan people? You'd have to go through the Taliban, and how can you trust that the Taliban is going to do with it what they're supposed to do with it? You can't, so you can't do it. And as harsh as that may sound for the Afghan civilians that are left behind, or anybody else that's left behind, that's just what has to be done. And you can blame it all on the Biden administration for that. That's why they got to go. Secondly, when it comes to our economic and development assistance relationship with the Taliban, that will be about the Taliban's actions. That will be about whether they follow through on their commitments to safe passage for Americans and Afghan allies, their commitment to not allow Afghanistan a base from which terrorists can attack the United States or any other country, their commitments with respect to upholding their international obligations. It's going to be up to them, Sullivan said, and we will wait and see by their actions how we end up responding. Sullivan's comments mean that the Biden admin has not taken direct aid to the Taliban government off the table, even though the US designates the Taliban a terrorist entity. The Taliban are designated as a terrorist group by the U.S. The sanctions freeze any U.S. assets of the group and bars Americans from dealing with them, including the contribution of funds, goods, or services, Reuters noted earlier in August. The Biden admin has spoke favorably about providing aid to the Afghan people, but that is complicated by the Taliban now being in control of the government, which is largely responsible for dispersing that aid. WLS Chicago previously reported that the Taliban siphoned off nearly 50% of all aid poured into Afghanistan since the beginning of the war. That aid effectively enabled the Taliban to begin its military offensive, an offensive that led to the U.S.'s premature and arguably disastrous withdrawal. Congress has said that most of the aid the U.S. has sent in the past several years didn't end up with the people who need it already, but they figured that about 50% of American aid to Afghanistan in the past several years has been siphoned off to warlords or to corruption or to fraud, a Northwestern University political science professor told the outlet. And so, with the change in government in Afghanistan, I think the odds of using American money to influence events and improve people's lives are pretty slim. Right. So what's the point? It is likely that the Biden admin views economic aid as the leverage it has often referred to in its discussions over how the administration plans to extract the hundreds of Americans who wanted to evacuate but were left behind when the U.S. pulled out on Monday. The administration, for example, might try to use foreign aid as leverage to persuade the Taliban to uphold human rights, particularly with respect to allowing refugees to leave the country and allowing women and girls to continue to pursue education and work opportunities outside the home, the Hill reported. Now, let me tell you why that's not going to work. Because the Taliban have been living in caves for the last 20 years, and they are not worried about modern amenities. They are not worried about uh, whether or not sanctions will be lifted. They don't care about that kind of stuff. That's not what they would use that money for anyway. It would be to directly fund any attacks on any other country that they hate. That's what it would be used to do. And um, so it's really kind of pointless. And then this whole point about, we're not going to give them foreign aid if they don't allow people to leave the country and travel outside the country, and over 100 countries have said that they're going to hold the Taliban accountable for allowing that to happen, except Russia and China did not sign that, and they do not care whether the Taliban allows people to travel freely in and out of Afghanistan that have the right to travel. That kind of stuff does not work with these kinds of people. It just doesn't work. So it's pointless, it's futile, and we just need to quit pretending like it's going to change anything, because it's not. And I don't know if they think that we're dumb enough to actually believe it, and maybe some people are that dumb. God forbid that not everybody here is that dumb. It's not going to work. Do not be giving them money. I, sometimes I feel like I'm living in the Twilight Zone, because I cannot believe that people are this dumb, which is why I believe there's always something nefarious beneath what they're doing, because I have a hard time believing that anybody is this stupid on purpose. I mean, on accident. You may do stupid stuff on purpose, but I don't believe they're this stupid. I believe this is malicious. I believe it's intentional. Everything that has happened from start to finish since Biden announced that we would still be withdrawing by August 31st. This has all been completely intentional. And I know I talked about Elijah Schaefer's idea of why he thinks this is happening and what the U.S. plans to do because of it. Alex Jones has made some comments about what he thinks is coming next. I'm not talking about Alex Jones because I don't want to get my video shut down for touting conspiracy theories. Not after I just had one taken down. Um, but I'll upload it to my Instagram and you can go watch it there and see what he has to say. Because I'll tell you what, Alex Jones has been right so far with the things that he's been saying. Okay, so Jen Psaki, I want to talk about her for a second. I know this is a lot about Afghanistan, but right now, this is a really big deal because I think this is going to directly impact us here. And I think that it's going to be a negative impact. And I think that we should be paying attention and taking this very seriously. But um, I want to point out, and I believe this is the leverage that she's talking about, but Jen Psaki did say that we have enormous leverage over the Taliban. And this is what I'm talking about. Are they really this stupid? Or do they think that we are that dumb that we would believe what they say to us? I don't understand how anybody thinks they have leverage over the Taliban. Honestly, we don't. They have hostages at their disposal that they can round up. They can demand money for those people. And we have people who are more than willing to negotiate with terrorists. I mean, I thought the policy was we don't, but apparently that's not the case. Apparently, we negotiate with terrorists all the time. And I mean, I kind of already knew that, but like to what extent, I wasn't really sure. So this was on Tuesday. So this would be today. Well, yeah, still today. It's still Tuesday. So today, she said, when she was asked about the kind of leverage that the U.S. has over the Taliban, she pointed reporters to the remarks Secretary of State made on Monday. She went on to say that we have enormous leverage over the Taliban. She said that includes access to the global marketplace, which do they really care, honestly, and claiming that it is not a small piece of leverage. In order to gain access to the global marketplace, we're going to be watching closely, as will the global community. I would note that yesterday the UN Security Council also passed a resolution that made clear to what the expectation is in terms of safe travel and evacuation, or departure, I should say, of individuals who want to leave Afghanistan. Psaki also said that nearly half of the countries in the world have also signed onto a statement making clear that is the expectation. And this is what I'm talking about, that Russia and China didn't sign. She went on to say that the engagement with the Taliban will continue through our ongoing channels that we have with the Taliban on the diplomatic front. And something that been pointed out today is that diplomacy is not a strategy, that diplomacy is just a tool, and diplomacy will not work with the Taliban. And especially won't work when you're using it as a strategy rather than as a tool. And I don't think I ever really understood that until Ben explained it. But it does make sense. And diplomacy will not work with the Taliban. After the last U.S. forces departed from the region, hundreds of Americans are still trapped in Afghanistan. And allegedly, not just hundreds of Americans, but our CIA members, some of them, are staying behind in Afghanistan. Apparently, they told the Senate or Senate Judiciary Committee, I don't know, some kind of committee in the Senate, that they were leaving behind CIA operatives on purpose. They're purposely leaving them there, but they're not saying how many, who they are. So that's in addition to the rest of the Americans left behind. So last week, Psaki said that it was irresponsible to say Americans were stranded. I think it's irresponsible to say Americans are stranded. They are not. We are committed to bringing Americans who want to come home home. We are in touch with them via phone, via text, via email, via any way that we can possibly reach Americans to get them home if they want to return home. President Joe Biden delivered remarks on Tuesday regarding the withdrawal of U.S. troops from Afghanistan and the debacle that has taken place in the past several weeks. As the Daily Wire reported, Biden turned his back on reporters after his speech and did not take questions. Earlier this month, Biden told ABC News' George Stephanopoulos that troops would stay in the country until all of the Americans were out. Stephanopoulos asked, so Americans should understand that troops might have to be there beyond August 31st. Biden answered, no. Americans should understand that we're going to try to get it done before August 31st. Stephanopoulos went on, but what if we don't? The troops will stay? If if we don't, we'll determine at that time who's left, Biden answered. And Stephanopoulos asked, Biden eventually admitted, and if you are American force, if there's American citizens left, we're going to stay to get them all out. Yet, they left yesterday, and there's Americans left. So, Peter Doocy was correct. Americans are stranded. Psaki was a liar. In his speech on Tuesday, Biden said that he is taking responsibility for the events of the past several weeks, but he appeared to cast blame in other directions as well, like his generals, he cast blame on them. The assumption was that more than 300,000 Afghan national security forces that we had trained over the past 2 decades and equipped would be a strong adversary in their civil wars with the Taliban. That assumption that the Afghan government would be able to hold on for a period of time beyond military drawdown turned out not to be accurate. And that also turned out to not be accurate because we pulled our air support and our logistics to help the Afghan army. We completely abandoned them and left them without being able, and we also took all of our contractors where they couldn't have equipment fixed if it broke down. So we really just left them pretty high and dry. And if we intended to leave them high and dry, then why did we leave all of our weaponry and artillery and our tanks, our planes, our helicopters? Why did we leave all of that behind if we were not even going to stay to continue helping the Afghan army in some form or fashion to fight the Taliban until evacuations were completed? That part I don't get. I'm still not able to understand that. Um, and it's just really weird. But I want to talk about a couple other things, and these are not pertaining to Afghanistan, but I thought that they were interesting. Haven't heard a lot about Governor Cuomo since he resigned, but there's a Democrat New York lawmaker who's saying that Cuomo should still be impeached. Now, I think he should have been impeached over the hundreds of elderly people that he killed when he forced them into nursing homes with COVID positive patients, knowing that they were highly susceptible to getting it and dying. Um, More people are more concerned about a sex scandal. I mean, yes, of course, that's wrong, but I think killing people is a lot worse, but he's never going to pay for that. So, a New York Democrat says outgoing Governor Andrew Cuomo, who resigned this week, should still be impeached even if he's no longer in office. New York State Rep Ron Kim, a Democrat who previously said Cuomo had threatened to destroy him for criticizing the governor's nursing home policy, said on Friday that he had reached out to a Cornell Law School professor for insight on impeaching Cuomo. Kim then posted the professor's response on Twitter. So let's take a look at the response. So on Twitter, this is it says, you have asked me quickly to assess the memorandum of law on the basis of which the New York State Assembly Speaker has announced an intention to suspend the current impeachment investigation of Governor Cuomo. After closely reading the memorandum, I have to say that it is regrettably short on both legal authority and persuasive authority. If there are any good reasons to suspend the impeachment investigation, they are not to be found in this memorandum. To its credit, the memorandum candidly notes that the question whether an impeachment can proceed after an official's announced intention to resign has not been definitively answered in New York State jurisprudence. This is no doubt why the memorandum holds that the governor probably, rather than definitely, cannot be impeached once he resigns. The basis on which the memorandum grounds this probability judgment, however, is obscure if not outright mistaken. The memorandum properly begins its analysis with the language of Article 6, Section 24 of the New York State Constitution, which reads in pertinent part that judgment in cases of impeachment shall not extend further than to removal from office or removal from office and disqualification from further future public office. From this, the memorandum allies to the conclusion that disqualification is thus expressly linked to removal, and the language does not seem to contemplate an impeachment or trial when removal from office is not the central determination. In assuming that this conclusion has any bearing at all on the question whether an official can be impeached after announcing an intention to resign, the memorandum apparently reads the word removal as if it denoted a physical action rather than a formal legal action, as if the question before the assembly were whether the physical body of the governor is to be physically carried out of the governor's office or the governor's mansion, rather than whether the assembly, senate, and court of appeals are to revoke the governor's legal status as governor and his legal eligibility to hold state office again. That the latter, not the former, is the proper understanding of removal has, as noted above, not found occasion to be litigated before in New York. We can be thankful for that, but analogies from other jurisdictions and fields of law are compelling. Uh, okay, I'm not going to read all of that. Anyway, so it says we could go on with further argumentation as to why there is no legal reason not to proceed with the Assembly's impeachment investigation. Assemblyman Kim, we could consider, for example, other states' jurisprudence, the history of impeachment under English common law, the fact that Governor Cuomo has not yet actually tendered his resignation, etc. If you wish, I can continue along these lines because you want at least a preliminary assessment of the Speaker's memorandum quickly. However, I'll leave my present immediate reaction as it is. Do please let me know if and when you might like to see more. So, that's going on. Right. Um, so Robert Hockett, the professor, explained to Kim that the rationale behind the New York State Assembly Speaker's decision to drop the impeachment probe against Cuomo is regrettably short on both legal authority and persuasive authority. There are two reasons for this decision. Oh, this is from Speaker Carl Hesty, a Democrat. So, first, the purpose of the Assembly Judiciary Committee's impeachment investigation was to determine whether Governor Cuomo should remain in office. The governor's resignation answers that directive. Second, we have been advised by Chair Levine, with the assistance of counsel, of the belief that the Constitution does not authorize the legislature to impeach and remove an elected official who is no longer in office. But didn't they say they were going to do that to Trump at one point? I'm pretty sure they did. Let me be clear, the committee's work over the last several months, although not complete, did uncover credible evidence in relation to allegations that have been made in reference to the governor. Underscoring the depth of this investigation, this evidence concerned not only sexual harassment and misconduct, but also the misuse of state resources in relation to the publication of the governor's memoir, as well as improper and misleading disclosure of nursing home data during the COVID-19 pandemic. So at least they're bringing it up. Professor Hockett noted that this explanation is flawed in its assumption that removal, as mentioned in state law, refers to the physical act of removing Cuomo from the position. Instead, Hockett argued it is more properly understood to mean that the Assembly, Senate, and Court of Appeals are to revoke the governor's legal status as governor and his legal eligibility to hold state office again. As Hockett explained, a thief who is indicted for larceny is not able to preempt the indictment by returning the stolen property upon learning that the arrest and indictment are imminent. The reason for this is because the criminal indictment is meant to be a formal legal expression of the public's disapproval of thievery and to brand the thief as a criminal. Similarly, the process of formal removal of a miscreant official from public office is not simply to empty a physical office space or residential property of the unwelcome physical presence of the official in question. It is rather A, to give formal legal expression to the state's judgment that the miscreant official is no longer legally fit for office, and B, formally to stigmatize the official as unfit for office. Hockett also noted that Cuomo has not actually tendered his resignation, but merely announced his plans to do so. Now, of course, we know he has resigned since then because he did. Um, but um, they are. I mean, that's a good thought. I mean, I think that if they could do it, they should because they do need to prevent him from ever being able to run for office again. Do I think anybody would vote for him after all this? Probably not, but you just never know. Um, that's it for tonight. I'm going to leave it here and I'm going to go to bed because I'm so tired. Anyway, don't forget to join me on my Facebook, Lauren Collins. I just got to say something. Now I do have an Instagram for the podcast under Gotta Say Something 21. You can email me, gotta say something 21 at gmail.com, and my subreddit is r slash just gotta say something. I'll leave all those in the description box below. And I'm also leaving the link to the merch and to the petition to protect women in prisons as well. Now, if you're a blind listener, you can find me on Anchor, Spotify, Google Podcast, Apple, Pandora. Please go subscribe and leave me a review. That would be great. And if you're on YouTube, don't forget to hit the like button and share this video with everybody that you know. That really helps. And if you want to leave me a comment, I will get back to you. But the best thing that you can do for me is to please subscribe to the channel and hit the notification bell so you know every time that I upload a new video. And I hope to see you back here tomorrow. I have no idea what Thursday's episode is going to be about yet, but I'm just going to go with this one on the fly. Anyway, I hope y'all will be there and have a good rest of your day. God bless.